What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing this one's going to be more informal, news and updates regarding the upcoming Godzilla Apple TV Plus series. Okay, so I just wanted to make this one so that I could go through some of the rumors and stuff I've been hearing, just so I could update you guys on what the current situation is. This episode's not going to contain any big reveals or anything like that, just some potential information. Alright, so starting out, I do have some confirmation on why the Godzilla show is going to Apple Plus. Just so that we have our bases cleared, this is in regards to the upcoming MonsterVerse Godzilla Apple TV Plus project that will be coming out within, I would probably say, like a year or so. I think around this time next year, we're going to be like a month away from getting it or something. I don't know. I would guess it'll probably come out around March 23. So in my previous news and updates, I talked a lot about why this show might have gone to Apple TV Plus rather than HBO Max. I do have confirmation on that, and I have touched on this in my 15 things video, but I want to cover it in a news video just so that I remember. Apple TV Plus outbid all other networks to secure the Godzilla show. It wasn't a matter of like picking Apple TV Plus, it was a matter of them picking the show. Now I have read reports online that Apple TV Plus was the front runner and was always going to get it. I don't know about that, but I do know confirmed that the reason Apple TV Plus got it is because they outbid all the other networks to secure the show. So it could have gone to HBO Max, it could have gone to Netflix, it could have gone to whoever wanted it. Alright, so this comes from you guys. I did find the source. I don't know how reputable the source is. We'll get to that when we get to that. But you guys really blew up the comment section on my last video. All sorts of rumors that you guys were falling into. And so I'm just going to talk about the rumors that you guys were telling me. And that's what we're going to be doing from the rest of this video. Starting out, you guys really seem to think that this show is going to have a Stranger Things sized budget. So not a C-sized budget, which we'll talk about in a second, but you guys were all saying a Stranger Things sized budget, which is $12 million an episode. Cool. That's not that far off from what I said. I have budget details down below for Apple TV Plus's Series C, which is one of their bigger series. I was wrong. It's not about Vikings. It's actually about people in the future. It's a post-apocalyptic future where everybody's blind. It is a Jason Momoa show. The budget details we have for that show is that it's $15 million an episode. There are 8 episodes a season. That gives me hope that Godzilla's gonna stick to around 8 episodes, please. This information was sent to me by Hamid and staff, so thank you to him. You guys can go check out the article down below with an interview from Jason Momoa where he talks a little bit more about the show's budget. That means that the whole season has a $120 million budget. That's a pretty decent size right there. That's like almost the size of Godzilla vs. Kong's budget. That's also the same episode-to-episode budget that Game of Thrones' final season had, and their CG always looks really, really impressive, so that's good news for us. As I pointed out in my previous video, this is the same budget Shin Godzilla had, so a $15 million budget per episode. That's the same budget Shin Godzilla had for a whole movie. With $15 million, I am confident that with a 60-minute episode, Godzilla will look very good whenever he shows up. He's not going to be in all 60 minutes, so I'm confident that that money will make Godzilla look great. So there you go. I think we could see a lot of really great Godzilla stuff in that show. Alright, now let's get into some series details. Like I said, I did a lot of digging because I saw a lot of comments and I got a lot of DMs and stuff about, you're not talking about the new information that just came out. And it's like, what new information came out? So I did some digging and I found a few articles that were written. These articles were actually written by like comicbook.com and CRB, which are not, it's not like these are like the Hollywood Reporter or anything, so don't put too much stock in them, guys. These are just independent run websites. So these articles were running with these reports, so I really dug into where did they come from. I tracked it down to a place called Murphy's Multiverse Reports. So they reported on the title of the show, supposedly. They reported on the title of the show, but then I was like, where did they get that information? And I came to a couple people. So it seems like this guy, RPK, a lot of people think that he's very reputable. I tried to look through some of his tweets and it was mostly just about Spider-Man No Way Home. I have seen that not a lot of his tweets were terribly accurate. He certainly was on the nose for a couple things, and I think that's why people look at him as a reputable, they call him a leaker. I don't exactly know if what he's doing is leaking information, certainly in regards to this show, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But then I tracked it back to a different person called KDM, who actually follows me on Twitter. KDM is like a German-run kaiju-related news outlet. Alright, so if KDM is originating all this information, I just want you guys to take your arm, not literally, please don't do this literally, but take your arm, cut it right on open, get some salt, take the lid off the salt shaker and dump it on in. We're gonna need a lot of salt in these wounds because I just don't, there's not reputable. I don't know, KDM, they could be on the money, they could not be. If they're not, people are probably not gonna remember. If they are, people are going to be like, they did it, because, you know, that happens a lot. I talk a lot about Grace Randolph's scoops. I feel like most of the time she's right about Warner Bros. Stuff, and then she's just wrong about a lot of other stuff. That's the business of scooping. I mean, you guys have seen on this channel, I've gotten some very valid scoops before. I've talked about Mothra was going to be blue, Ghidorah was going to have those rattlesnake tails, Rodan, I think I was the one who talked that he was going to come from a volcano. I got that information out before anything from King of the Monsters was revealed, and then also I got information that Mechagodzilla was going to be in Godzilla vs. Kong before that became official. Now, if you guys remember, with the Mechagodzilla Godzilla vs. Kong situation, I was updated that he was going to be a big mech, probably built by Monarch, probably operating on Skull Island, whose main function with his hands was to pick up skull crawlers. That very much was not the case in them. I mean, his hands did pick up skull crawlers, but the rest of that was just not the case of what happens in that movie. So the point is, I don't really trust these sources until I would have reason to. The reason I'm covering the information they broke is because it honestly boils down to nothing. It's not that impressive. They have a potential name and some potential casting details. They're not talking spoilers here. They're not talking story leaks. So it's harmless information, and that's why I'm okay covering it. You guys know I have a firm anti-leak policy. I will not cover leaks on this channel. I will not cover stuff like that. They're talking about like character descriptions that have some story elements, but it's not story details, so we're fine. This is nothing. I don't totally buy this, so I'm going to cover what you guys have been talking about because I've seen a lot of you guys ranting about it. If it's true, it's cool, but if it's not, then whatever. So according to KDM, this series was originally going to be titled Monarch, and it was supposed to be developed in 2019 following King of the Monsters. Due to COVID, it got shut down and then pushed back, and then Godzilla vs. Kong came out, and now it's coming out, and they are currently going under the working title Hourglass. Now, I mean, if it's not obvious already, the hourglass symbol, it's the Monarch symbol on its side. The Monarch symbol is supposed to represent like a blend between eternity, a butterfly, and an hourglass, so it makes sense. That was the actual design plans from Gareth Edwards, was that it was supposed to be like a butterfly, but also something scientific, and the final result was just take an hourglass and put it on its side. I did see ETN clown on that, but it makes sense. If the working title is Hourglass, that's cool. For those of you wondering why would they need a working title, is that going to be the title of the show? I don't know if it'll be the title of the show, but I have a feeling this might be the working title. I tried to confirm this, but I wasn't able to get any information. So I do think that this stands a pretty good chance of being true, but also you could just look at the Monarch symbol and then turn it on its side and it's an hourglass. So it's not that big of a stretch for some fan to make up. Now, why would they need a working title like Hourglass? Well, it's the same principle. You know, I did see ETN make fun of this too, but you got to remember, Godzilla vs. Kong is a movie we've known about since like 2017 or something like that, maybe even earlier than 2017, like going back to 2016 or 2015 even. I can't totally remember when that movie was announced. It was before Kong Skull Island, so I think it was around 2015-16. Point is, we knew the movie was going to come out for a long time, and yet when they were filming the movie, it was called Apex. The reason they call it something different on set is just to avoid fans swarming them and leaking information. It's to avoid people flooding the film and flooding the set and trying to get set photos and trying to get in the movie and trying to leak details about it. So if Hourglass is the working title, it's just a way to try and throw people off their trail. It keeps it a little more secret, even if we've already discovered it right now. It keeps it a little more secret from the general public. According to these reports, this is supposed to be a 10-episode season. Interesting that they call it a season. That means we could get a season 2. I would be totally okay with getting multiple seasons of a Godzilla show. 10 episodes is fine. I prefer 8 because I think 8 is a little tighter, but 10 is if that's what they need to tell the story they want to tell, then that's fine with me. This is supposed to shoot in Canada, Hawaii, and Tokyo, so the same places Godzilla 2014 shot. According to this report, filming starts in May and ends in November. That means that they're currently casting right now, and they're trying to get pre-production done at the moment. However, CRB reported that the show will begin production in May and then start filming in November. I don't know what the difference is. When you begin production, you're moving from pre-production to production. That means cameras are probably rolling very soon. I don't know why there'd be a May to November delay there. Maybe they just worded it wrong, but that seems to me like, of the two reports, May as a start filming date and November as an end filming date seems a little more reasonable. According to these reports, directors are being picked and casting is beginning right now. That leads us to a whole bunch of character details. So these could be the main characters. They could be the only characters in the show. Maybe they're just the only ones that they need to cast. If they needed to get characters back like Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, or anybody else returning, they wouldn't put out a casting call for that. That's where I think a lot of this information is coming from, is it seems to be a lot of this information is coming from casting calls. However, I have yet to track down the original casting calls, so again, I don't totally buy this information. It's not that hard to make up. According to these reports, Ken Watanabe has been reached out to, and KDM seems pessimistic that he will return. They don't think he's going to return. As we're going to talk about, it would make a lot of sense for Ken Watanabe to return. It would make a lot of sense for Shun Ogori to return, and it would make a lot of sense for other returning actors to the Godzilla franchise to return that have not necessarily been in the MonsterVerse. And by that I mean the show is supposed to film in Japan, primarily. As we'll talk about, this is mostly going to be a Japanese show. Running through the reported cast, we have a character named Kate. She is a young female Japanese American, speaks Japanese but has an American accent. She goes to Japan where she discovers her family is connected to Monarch, so I guess that explains the plot synopsis where it says that the family is going to have Monarch connections. She has some secrets to her past that connect her to Monarch. Is that not the same information I just read? I don't know, but it's listed twice in the same report in 2 different spots, so I guess she's definitely going to be connected to Monarch if this is real. She is thoughtful but weary, traumatized, and ready to confront problems. Alright, she sounds like a good protagonist. Next up, we have Kentaro. It's a cool name. He is a young male, Japanese, goes to Japan from London and learns about the mystery of his father. There, he learns the truth regarding his father and his connection to Monarch. He is highly intelligent but lacking manners and social skills. He sounds like a real Yun Arikawa. It's interesting that he's coming from Japan to London. I wonder if he'll have like a London accent at all. That'd be quite interesting. This is again another character connected to Monarch with a family connection. He also sounds a little bit like Ren Serizawa. As we'll talk about, his father sounds a little bit like Serizawa. His mother is named Emiko. That's a cool name. It's a returning name to the Godzilla franchise. Emiko, of course, being the character that Momoko Kochi played in Godzilla 1954. This is Kentaro's mother, 50s Japanese, does not speak English. She is comforting and caring but willing to fight for her family. It's interesting that she doesn't speak Japanese. Again, this is a very Japanese-centric show, according to these casting lists anyways, and that's something that would be quite interesting. And it'd also be interesting because on Apple TV Plus, I don't think that's a show where they'd like, oh, everybody speaks English, but this is supposed to be Japan. This is going to be a situation where I think they're just going to fully commit to, if they're in Japan, they're speaking Japanese. If they're in America, they're speaking English. If the English characters are together, they're going to speak English. But if they're with Japanese characters, they're going to speak Japanese. My preferred way to do stuff. That's how Godzilla Final Wars was. That's how a lot of the Heisei Godzilla movies are. I prefer it when characters speak the language they're supposed to speak for the situation they're in. I don't like it when we see a movie and there's characters who are supposed to be speaking one language, but they're speaking English just for the convenience of the American audiences. It always takes me out of the movie. Next up, we have Hiroshi. Hiroshi is Ken's father, 50s Japanese American. Oh, it's interesting that he's a Japanese American and not a Japanese man if he lives in Japan and he's Kentaro's father. He's a scientist who cares more about work than his family. Interesting. Sounds a little like the dynamic between Serizawa and Ren. He lives on his own rules and is a little distant at times. He works with satellites and has a PhD. He is involved with Monarch based on the Kentaro description. I like it. I like that description. I think that could be a very interesting character. Based on the character bios, that's the one that I find the most interesting. Next up, we have Mei. Now, this one is spelled May like the month instead of May like Mei Kamino, which is another returning name for the Godzilla franchise. She is a young woman, 20s. She is a British person who is black, so that's totally different. She's an expat. I don't know where she's originally from. Maybe she's living in Japan, or maybe she's living in Britain, but she's from somewhere else. Based on this, if she's a British person and we've got Kentaro from London, those two might be traveling together in the show. She's super intelligent, always 2 to 3 steps ahead of the other characters, has a strong sense of self, and is sharp-witted. Interesting. Alright, she sounds fine. Finally, we have Keiko. She's female, 30s, Japanese, speaks English well, driven scientist in a male-driven world, but is well-respected. I like the fact that she's well-respected based on this description. Kind of reminds me of like Clarice from Silence of the Lambs in a male-driven world, except that this time she actually has the respect she deserves. If this is true, we've got a pretty solid cast list here. It's a lot of Japanese people with 1 British person thrown in. There's a lot of diversity here, which is what Apple TV Plus really strives for, so that's fine. My thoughts on this is I think it's really cool to get a lot of Japanese people in this project. I know that's something that a lot of people have complained about for a long time. The MonsterVerse is not heavily enough tied to Japan. Godzilla is a Japanese character. We need to return to Japan and spend time in Japan. I personally don't see the point. Toho is still making Godzilla projects. They're still making Godzilla movies. They've got 30 plus Godzilla movies of their own. I've seen Godzilla in Japan with a Japanese cast over 30 times. If you want to see Godzilla in Japan with a Japanese cast, go watch a Godzilla movie from Japan. Like a real one. You don't have to watch an American one, not to say that American Godzilla movies aren't real Godzilla movies, but it is to say that the place where the movie is made doesn't dictate if you can watch it as an American. It blows my mind that some American reviewers and critics have critiqued the MonsterVerse for having predominantly American casts when that's the country the movies are being made. I think it's really cool. I'm all for it. I just don't get why it's a need. I feel like if you want that, there's 30 other movies that can satisfy that. And I guess my point is people need to watch more authentic Godzilla movies from Japan and stop being like, America should do it like this. Let American Godzilla do what it wants to do. And then how about you go watch the actual Japanese content and expose yourself to some Japanese cinema. And to be clear here, it's not even the cast that I take issue with. If it's a full Japanese cast, that's awesome. I like that. I'm okay with that. That's actually something that I think is cool. It's more of the setting. I don't know why we gotta go to Japan. I don't know why we have to be tied to Japan. Toho's Godzilla has been so tied to Japan that it's become a meme at this point. It's like he always attacks Japan. They even reference it in certain movies. And because Toho likes to keep things in-house, that's fine. They can keep doing that. We can keep seeing Godzilla go to Japan when they make those movies. But the MonsterVerse is a chance to go international. The thing I love the most about the MonsterVerse is that we don't pick one city or even one coast or even one country. We go all over the globe in these movies, and I really like that, and I would like to explore more of the globe. I'd like to see Godzilla in different places he's never been before. I just feel like by going back to Japan, we're really limiting our potential here and not showing Godzilla do things outside of that. We already know what happens when Godzilla goes to Japan. Not that I even think Godzilla is going to show up in Japan just because of the way this show seems to be going. It just, timeline-wise, Godzilla wouldn't show up in Japan. I just don't know why we would go back to Japan the whole time for this show, unless Toho has larger involvement in this show. I guess that could make sense. I guess I just wish we could see more of the globe in the MonsterVerse, get some more potential there. Because although I like seeing Japan, I can see it 30 other times, and I'd like to see some other countries get some play, because Toho will only do that for specialty events, it seems. Final Wars, Destroy All Monsters, those are the very rare occasions Toho's Godzilla leaves Japan. That being said, a huge Japanese cast for an American project, that's really cool. I like the exposure for Japanese actors in America. I think that would be a really important thing. I like to have a strong push for Asian actors in projects, just because I feel like not a lot of people do. I'm really glad that that's changing in recent years with things like Parasite and Squid Game, and people are finally opening up to Asian cinema, but it's something that I've grown up with and not a lot of Americans are receptive to, so I really like seeing stuff like this, and I think that'll be important for getting Japanese actors exposure in America. So if that's the point, then I'm all for that. Now, another reason this might be happening is because Toho might have a little more creative involvement in this project, and because they have more creative involvement and more creative control and they're filming on their home base in Japan, apparently, maybe they want a lot more Japanese people because it's more familiar to them. That's cool. As for the plot descriptions, so everything that we've gathered from this, it's going to be a primarily young cast traveling to Japan from different locations to investigate Monarch, where they will eventually meet up and realize that their time is limited because there are more monsters out there than just Godzilla and the Mutos, and they want to do something about that. One of the characters is said to travel from San Francisco to Japan. I think Hiroshi was said to travel from San Francisco to Japan, and also Kate might be traveling from San Francisco to Japan, or at least from America to Japan. I think Hiroshi works in America and Japan based on what we've seen, which would make sense because Monarch is an international corporation. Here is my final thoughts on this. If this is real, and it could be, if we are filming in Japan, let's get some Toho actors. Let's see some returning Japanese faces. Ken Watanabe is a Japanese actor who does a lot of performances in Japanese. Actually, I think most of his performances are in Japanese, and I think he might live in Japan. That sounds like a perfect chance to bring him back. Shunogori is a Toho actor. He was brought into Godzilla vs. Kong as his first big American blockbuster. I think it might have been his first American movie. If he's on his home base in Japan, well, let's get him back. Let's get the two of them back and on screen together, please. And then also, there's a lot of Godzilla alumni who can return. If we're gonna be in Godzilla's home base, we can see a lot of familiar faces. There's one familiar face that I would like to see more than any other. This is the perfect time for Akira Takarada. Give him the cameo he deserves. The cameo that was cut from the 2014 movie and then so rudely not released to the public. Bring Akira Takarada back. He's a heart attack survivor, I just found out. He had a heart attack last year and he survived. I don't want to be like, time is limited, but he is older. He's getting up there in age. We don't have a ton of time to keep bringing him back, but he's alive and well enough to do it. And as far as I've seen, he wants to keep doing this stuff. He loves Godzilla, and I think it'd mean a lot to get him back. Even for just a small cameo, like Stan Lee moment. Get him back, please. If we're going to Japan, do it right. Get some Japanese actors that we know and love as Godzilla fans, that'd be great. I've seen some concerns from like ETN that this might not be able to be marketed to an American public because it's so Japanese centric. That could be the case, but I think there is a push in America for more Asian content. We are accepting things like Squid Game was a massive phenomenon, and of course Parasite, which won an Oscar, won an Academy Award for Best Picture. So there is more of an acceptance for Asian cinema at the moment and Asian actors and Asian characters. This could be a potential place for us to get a lot of that exposure as well. I agree agree that it is limiting based on the cast list we have so far, that there's not room for any American actors that we know and love to show up. There is a lack of star power in the MonsterVerse sometimes, and if this doesn't have any, this might be a very niche project that might not do terribly well. If we do get some returning faces from living characters in the MonsterVerse like Serizawa, that'd be great, but again, even if we get someone like Serizawa or Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I don't know if that's enough star power to bring eyes to this project. This is only one set of a cast list. This isn't like a full cast list. There could be more main characters. We have no idea. This is just some tiny little blurb that some guy wrote. This doesn't even... I don't think it's totally real, but if it is, it's not a full cast list either, so we could get some American actors here as well. But I do agree that there is a potential limitation here where we're not going to get as much exposure on it. My personal concern lies a lot less with how it's going to be received by American audiences and more with, I don't think China's going to like this show, and the MonsterVerse makes most of its money in China. Without the Chinese support, I don't know how well this show will do. It'll be big in Japan if this is real. If this is real, I'm sure the show will do very well in Japan, and I could see it doing moderately well in America, even without any American star power to bring eyes to the table. But I do worry about like the international market. The MonsterVerse does make a lot of money in China. Maybe this project doesn't need that. Maybe it'll be small enough. With $120 million potential budget, that's not that small. That's a pretty big budget. It's like a normal MonsterVerse movie. I don't know. That's just something to think about. As far as it stands, I'm all for a full Japanese cast. I'm all for something like this. I think that a lot of the reasoning people want that is a little like, just go watch a Godzilla movie from Japan. But as far as them actually doing it, I'm all for them actually doing it. I also do think the ETN does raise a valid point when he says that it might not have a lot of American audiences on board because it doesn't have a lot of American star power. So that could also be a potential factor to think about. So I don't know. You guys have been hitting me with these details a whole bunch that the show's called Hourglass, and you guys think it's confirmed because comicbookmovies.com ran with it. Comicbookmovies.com runs with a lot of stuff. It's just another reporting outlet like me. It's just in written form. Just stuff to think about, guys. Personally, I don't think that much of this is going to hold much weight. A lot of this could change even if this is real now. Things go under massive changes. I'm currently working on a show where the original show was written, it was 6 episodes, and then they threw 3 episodes out, wrote 3 new episodes, and then they threw one of those out, wrote another episode, scrapped a whole bunch of characters, changed a whole bunch of characters. It's just not the show that it started as. So even if this information is real, there's still an enormous chance that if it gets made, it doesn't resemble this at all. The only thing I can confirm for sure is that C definitely had a $15 million budget per episode because Jason Momoa said it, and that Apple TV Plus outbid all other studios to pick up the Godzilla show for distribution. There you go. That's the news and updates this time. It's not, like I said, it's not like a real news and updates. It's more informal because so much of this information is just people saying stuff. No offense to RPK or KDM if you guys are watching. KDM might be watching because they follow me. No offense to you guys. You guys could be on the money and you guys could be legit. I don't have any way to know that, so I'm gonna say probably not. As the official verdict is probably not, but maybe. All right, that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.